The Alberta government is facing pressure to balance its budget. They seem to be suggesting it can't be done without raising taxes. So for guidance, the government is meeting with so-called top thinkers in the province in just 3 days. A taxpayer watchdog has some advice of their own. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation has laid out an alternative budget plan for the province. So for more on this, we've got the Alberta Director, Fildebrandt, joining us from Calgary. Derek, how does your plan get this done without increasing taxes?
Well, we're proposing to do what the government has so far been trying to do, and that's actually to cut spending. We lay out a very detailed list of areas to find just under $4 billion in absolute terms for cuts, and up to $6 billion relative to planned spending. And we go through a number of areas in detail. We go through public sector compensation. We believe that bringing public sector wages and salaries in line with equivalent jobs in the private sector would save us $1.4 billion right off the top. Trimming the number of core public bureaucrats down by 5%, we believe will save $150 billion. We found $150 million. We found $170 million in corporate welfare cuts, and there's quite a long list of areas for the government to cut if they've got the stomach to do it.
Yeah. Now, how quickly can they do this? It's one thing to say that public, as an example, public wages come back to private sector areas, but the difference is significant. It would have to transition, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's fair. Some of these measures could take place in 1 year, particularly on the non-personnel operating cut side. That would be on corporate welfare and a lot of other grants and handouts that the government makes right now. On the public wages and salaries, in all reality, this kind of thing would probably need to transition over a 2 to 3 year period. When Rob Klein decided he needed to cut spending out here, he brought the unions into the negotiating room to make them a part of the solution. He said he gave them an option. He said, "I'm going to cut 7% out of the budget here, and it's going to come from wages, salaries, benefits. And you guys can figure out how to do that. You can either take less, you can take job cuts, you can take less in benefits, pensions, or you can take less in wages." And he when they refused to work with him, he said he threatened to pull 7% just out of the operating budget of different departments, which would effectively force it and just be more painful. So the way Rob Klein did it is he brought the unions in to make them a part of the solution, and they were quite cooperative in the end because he said the money wasn't there.
We haven't seen those kinds of initiatives yet from the Albertan government, or having those discussions at least. But do you think, and there might be a cutback in some of the services, do you think that people in Alberta are ready for those kinds of changes?
Well, we've done it before. Albertans led the way in calling for the federal government to cut its funding in the mid-1990s. Alberta was the first province to significantly cut its spending on a provincial level in the 1990s. We did it before it was cool in Ontario. And I think Albertans are getting to the point where they're going to be ready for it again. Although they're hearing very contradictory messages. A lot of people in the government side are claiming simply that we can't cut spending, we need to continue to spend. We've increased spending by 61% over the last 10 years. After inflation, that works out to, after inflation population growth, that's still a 25% increase in real terms of spending here. Yet the government is still claiming it's broke and that it has no choice but to continue to increase spending, even this year. So there's a dialogue that's taking place. We're arguing that we're actually spending more than we were 10 years ago, much more, and that if we would have just simply kept spending to inflation population growth, we wouldn't be in this mess today. The government is, on the other hand, claiming that they might need to raise taxes next year. So there are those two differing views. We hold a very different view than at least some people inside the government, but we're trying to get Albertans ready politically for the fact that we're going to have to cut spending if we want to avoid massive tax hikes.
Yeah. Now, Derek, there is a school of thought that says austerity is not the measure, and it is not the way you should address some of these deficits and some of these concerns. The other way to address it is on the revenue side and to grow the economy. And that's something Alberta has tried, not only on the resources side, but manufacturing and industry, those kinds of things. Are there suggestions in your proposals talking about that side of the equation?
Well, Alberta does face a huge challenge on in its economy, and partially when it comes to revenues, because we can't get raw bitumen to market, to the world market. We're strained within the purely North American market here, and that differential does hurt the Alberta economy, and it hurts the bottom line revenues in provincial government. But these are not new issues. The government's now blaming the differential in the price of the oil we get here versus oil on the world market for the lack of revenues and some economic problems. But, the differential in the price of oil is pretty much the same right now as it was when the government tabled this last budget. It's not a new problem. In fact, it's a problem that's existed for a decade. So, what we need to be doing is continuing to work with other provinces. This is an area I think that I give the provincial government some credit. They have been working constructively with other provinces and helping us to get pipelines built. The government here is quite serious, I think, about market access for Alberta's oil, which is important both economically and physically. But unfortunately, they've not been serious about dealing with the issue right now. I mean, if we were to get all these major pipelines approved tomorrow, we probably wouldn't see a cent in government revenue come in for probably 7 years. In the meantime, we could be running up tens of billions of dollars in debt.
Derek, let's leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
Derek Fildebrandt. He's Alberta Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation.